Welcome back to the program. This is the review segment of the morning show. My name is David Niyo Tukuno Ato, and always excited around this time because I bring you some insightful discussions on the platform. Let me remind you that you can get connected and get interactive with me on the various issues that we've tabled for discussion this morning. Just go on our various social media handles on Pan-African Television, on Facebook at Pan-African Television, and on all other social media handles at Pan-African TV. Our WhatsApp platform is activated. Just get your messages in, and then we will do the justice, the needful, at the end of the programming. This morning, we'll be taking a critical look on our African story. We take you to Benin. They had their presidential elections just yesterday, right? The incumbent president is no longer fit, to run. So they seem to have, some people think that, that's not even a context, because if you look at the way the selection was made, it looks like he's just been, brought onto the people to have them rule under him. So we'll take a critical look at the Benin elections. Results are expected somewhere from tomorrow. We just want to have a lengthy discussion on that, see what is happening in Benin as we speak. We'll also take a discussion on the back of the prosecutions. When I say prosecutions, I'm talking about the corruption-related cases where we're having some extraditions coming up. The former Maslok boss, SENA, is being asked to return home, or is going to be extradited back to Ghana. A U.S. court has given that order. So we're asking the big question. So all the issues that have come up after SENA, what next? Who is next on the bill? We'll have a discussion around that. Then we'll also take a critical look at the seemingly, battle for powers, so to speak, where the Attorney General has joined the suit, challenging the prosecutorial powers of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Who gets what, or who has the power to prosecute what? These issues will be laid to bear when I start questioning my guests in studio. This morning I've been joined in the studio by Prince Derrick Ejay, PDA. Is a former presidential staffer and also a member of Arise Ghana. Good morning, Prince.
Yes, good morning. And how was your weekend?
I should be asking how your weekend was.
You left that
because
part out. So.
You are on my table, so I should be worried how you celebrated your weekend.
Well, it wasn't a good weekend for me in two regards. One, there was some demolition exercise near the stables. That's the coconut plantation. I was there with the regional minister.
Which coconut? Where?
The coconut, when they say the coconut plantation, the area near the Osu Shell, Mazira, across the street from Mazira.
Mazira, okay.
Yes, Mazira, right. Across the street from there, towards the beach.
Yeah.
There's the stables, and then after that, there's what used to be the coconut plantation.
Oh, used to be.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
But it's been encroached. It's state land that's been encroached. It's lands that should have come to the last two, but it's yet in the processes of, and it's in the custody of the state, and encroachers have come upon it. And yeah, there was some demolition. There's been some misconstruing of the facts, and I think that in good time we'll have the opportunity to, look at it. But basically, I'm happy that there's a policy direction now to have state lands, state public land protection unit at the Lands Commission, which is in charge of ensuring that encroachment of state lands are stopped. I think that's a positive development. I hope that this unit would do the needful, but would not be left to be done in a manner that, as it were, endangers lives. The other part of it has to do with health. Right. A 38-year-old friend of mine had a stroke 2 weeks ago, so for the past 2 weeks I've been in and out of Bridge Hospital, and he's due to be discharged this morning.
He's well.
Yeah, he's due to be discharged this morning. And coincidentally, about an hour apart is when the health minister will be launching that policy push to plug the holes in the health, delivery.
We'll have a discussion maybe at the end of the program.
I hope my friend gets the Mahama Cares to support his heart.
Also condition. With me in the studio is Jamani Selom Nudoko Jamado. Right, that's a typical Ghanaian name, right? and evening. Very strong ones there. Good morning. Good morning. And how are we doing? Right.
Doing well.
How was the weekend?
Well, it's been hectic because over the weekend I was in Adidome, my hometown, for a couple of funerals. Wow. So I was there when duty summoned that I appear on your show this morning. Right. So I had to, hop onto a vehicle and then be able to prepare myself for the program this morning. So let me use the opportunity to say a very good morning to all the good people of Central Town constituency, North Town constituency and South Town constituency who are watching Good Morning Africa live on Pan-African television.
Right.
Madubele myokata be meletodum Pan-African TV ndeke myokata le Central Town, South Town, North Town letodum the Pan-African TV madubele myopio. Dakpere mo be myokata miga follow musema.
Mikata. Right, okay. Thank you so much for making time to come through. And then also with us this morning is Dr. Aminu Shitu, is a former UN peacekeeping official. Doc, good morning. Good morning. And how are we?
By His grace, and surviving.
You've already survived. And how was the weekend?
Quite normal. A bit of social activity and, there's a normal routine, funeral engagements here and then. It's fine. Except that the sad one is waking up this morning to the death of Ebrekum Chelsea, 20-year-old winger, Dominic Frimpong, I believe. I think that is not good for Ghana football. We know the football in Ghana has already been dealt with so many problems here and there. To add security angle, it's a bit problematic. I think last year there was this stabbing incident, which we all talked about, and then only to wake up this morning to hear about armed robbery attack after they had played football and they were returning. I think that's not good for Ghana football. We can only hope that the authorities will wake up to the call and ensure the needed security.
And it raises a lot of concerns. The security detail for some of our footballers, especially on match days.
Yes.
When they are moving from their hotel before and after matches. Do they even have any security details? And I think that we need to have a discussion about all this security. Right? So, very sad one. All right. But anyway, condolences to the bereaved family. Well, my weekend was boring. It was okay. I was home. I didn't get anybody to take me out, so I could have done that myself. But Prince decided not to pick my calls. I was just kidding. He wants to get at me, so I will start getting at him first.
No, but now that the friend will be discharged, you'll be my new
All right, so let's start off our discussion on the African story. We take you to Benin. Yesterday, there was an election in Benin, talking about the presidential election. The current president, Patrice Talon, is no longer eligible to stand as the next president. He served 2 terms. So at the back of that, they're having an election to elect a new president for Benin. Already, there are strong indications that there's a gentleman called Romuald Wadagni. He's the current, I think, finance minister in Benin. He's been tipped to replace the current president. But there's a lot of talk, right? There's a lot of talk. These elections comes at the back of, I think 4 months ago, there was some kind of civil strife in Benin where there was an attempted, coup d'etat. Others also saw it as a maneuvering or pushing of the current president to hold on to power and stuff. But the people of Benin will vote or will decide by tomorrow who their next president would be. I want to start with you. Doc, I'll start with you on this one. As it, you've been in that fray before. What do you see at the back of the reports that we are receiving? First of all, I don't know whether you monitored the whole process. Our former president is one of the observing, he's leading the AU or the ECOWAS observing mission. And in the time that that country is seen or is perceived to be heading towards a certain direction, it becomes obvious that you need somebody in that capacity to see to it that. But I have my worry. First of all, what were your observation, what has been your observation so far? Results are expected tomorrow.
From tomorrow going?
From tomorrow. So let's say results are expected to trickle in from tomorrow going.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so what has been your observation so far?
Hey, thank you very much, David. Good morning once more, and good morning to your cherished viewers. Very good morning to our people, my people in Bolga and Tamale. Well, Benin, indeed, yes, as you said, they had elections yesterday, and indeed, international presence, fine. We had ECOWAS delegation, we had AU delegation, we had EU delegation as well. So to the extent that we are yet to have their comprehensive reports, we'll just keep our fingers crossed and be waiting. But results are expected from tomorrow. But as you said in the preamble, yes, the current president, Patrice Talon, has had his 2-year term and constitutionally not eligible. As a result, he has to give way. But as African Confidential and other reporting agencies will have it, they indicated that, the way was ruthlessly, cleared with efficiency to ensure the current finance minister, Wagner, as you indicated, would take over. So the results are somehow already predicted, they are known. Why? Because somehow, the electoral processes were put in place.
Were manipulated, so to speak.
To ensure that the ruling coalition continues. And that's why they have the dominance of the 109 seats in parliament as we talk. And basically what they did was to just enact laws that said that if you do not have about 15% backing of mayors and legislators, you cannot qualify or fill in a candidate for the presidency.
Obviously, you don't have any opposition leaders,
so
they will not favor that. So
in short, they found ways to actually get away or do away with opposition elements. But the critical, strong ones, that would have given them, run for their money. So that is what the situation we have. So as you said, Talon's legacy somehow, some people say it's a mixed bag. To the extent that some economic prospects have been, achieved, on average 5-6%, GDP over the last 10 years. So the economy has improved, even though in terms of wealth distribution, there's a question mark there. That's why sometimes even though when you talk of GDP, others are more interested in GNP. That is what the nationals have themselves have actually produced. So even you might have good GDP growth, but to what extent is the growth impacting on the livelihood of the ordinary person? Because currently about 30% plus of Benin's, ordinary people are still living under, abject poverty somehow. So somehow, yes, it has had some impact, positive, impact on the economy. But in terms of wealth distribution, there's still much to be done. On the other side is a shrinking civil and public space, or the political landscape that we're talking about. That in a way, he has ensured that the whole system has been regulated and manipulated in a manner that, that has frozen free speech, arrested, opposition elements, and did all kinds of things not to allow, free democratic process. So that is one of the legacy that we cannot also, forget about. So as a result, the 49-year-old current finance minister has been given the green light to, to take the baton from him. So that is what we have as of now, and we are only hoping that there will be a free, smooth transition. Generally, the election has been described to be generally peaceful, but there have been few instances. At least CSOs have reported about 100 incidents. They claim there are instances of some ballot stuffing. There are instances of some delays and some, generally the normal irregularities that we can talk of in an election environment. But to the extent that you don't even have a strong opposition to contest, then it's a foregone, conclusion. So that is the situation we have now, and we can only hope that if Wagner, takes over, he would maybe reform the system in a way to open democratic environment to ensure full participation of all and sundry. Where if you have a situation where a small coalition is just manipulating the system, it's not good for democracy. Indeed, there are other contending presidential candidates. He was a former cultural minister.
Yeah.
I think it was just a deal to just show that he gets through.
Yeah.
So he was able to garner some support from the legislators in order to, support his candidature.
Paul Hunupe.
Yeah, Hunupe. Yeah, Paul Hunupe. So somehow it was like it was like a bargaining chip in order not to look at a one-sided contest. So they managed to put him in. But the main opposition contender has actually been sidelined like other opposition leaders here and there. So that is the situation we have in Benin. From tomorrow onwards, let's see what is going to happen as far as the results are concerned. And then, but one thing is clear. Looking at the last legislative election in January, participation was just about 36%. It was low. The turnout was low, and it is expected this time again. However, the government wants to ensure that the numbers are a bit, propped up in order to legitimize whatever they have done, and then whoever is going to take over. But all said and done, predictions are suggesting that the turnout might be low, just as we had in January legislative election. So that's the situation we have in Benin.
Ramani, one is forced to ask, will the results, final results, be seen as free and fair? Will it depict the actual will of the people? Because if you look at what happened even some few months ago, it is quite clear and obvious that there's been suppression of whatever processes that they need to be, right? And my worry is always to do with ECOWAS. For those of us who sit behind the table, you can see what is happening in Benin, right? When the manipulation started, when the president started trying to enforce his will on the people of Benin, right? He started by changing the constitution, running now from 5 years, now it's up to 7 years. People even suggested that he actually wanted to change the constitution for him to run for a third term, right? So there was all those implications. ECOWAS sits aloof, no comment, nobody says anything, and they're having their election. Then we send observers to go and observe what? What are we going to observe? So I don't know how you will say it. Will these results be deemed free, fair, and the actual will of the people of Benin?
It will be pretty difficult for me to say that given the environment or the kind of things that have characterized the process leading up to the election, the outcome would truly reflect the will of the people of Benin. I doubt that, because Doc rightly referred to the turnout in the last election, that it actually it was so low, reflecting that was reflective of how the democratic institutions there are being stifled by the gentleman who is in the helm, whose tenure will be over for another person to come in. You see, Benin started with some sterling democratic credentials, but have kind of faltered somehow because of this gentleman, the current president,
Patrice Talon.
Patrice Talon. What people or leaders must know, that when you subscribe to democracy, you must be ready to go by all the tenets of democracy. That is, if the society or a country embraces democracy, people who have the chance to or the opportunity to lead must always go by the tenets of democracy. If you know you cannot go by the tenet of democracy, don't put yourself up for leadership role, because democracy and that kind of to be arbitrary in doing your stuff, it doesn't go with democracy. You understand? Because democracy, and particularly the one that we have, African countries have subscribed to, it's participatory democracy. It is a type of democracy where citizens have the opportunity or the right to also participate in the process, to also contribute to the growth and development of democracy. But it appears some of the African countries have quite not woken up to be where, let's say, Ghana is. You understand? In Ghana, we don't have this kind of thing. So the contest, some have even described it not as contest, but as a coronation.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's just a coronation, not a contest, because everything has been manipulated in favor of the ruling coalition's candidates. You see? So the spectacular controversy characterizing the whole process will make it say that predictably the ruling coalition's man, because you know the name, I'm finding it difficult to mention the name because of how it sounds. The Wadagni. If you are not careful, you say Wagner. Wadagni. If you are not careful, you mention it as Wagner. So that is what it is. It's just, it's not a contest, but a coronation. So we just wish them well that the process will, maybe the outcome will not compel some people to, you know, engage in violence.
Yeah.
And to ECOWAS, it is not only ECOWAS, it is all the global institutions or organizations that are supposed to be like peer reviewing.
Yeah, yeah.
To be engaged in peer review. They are not doing it because some of them also feel guilty. You understand? Like they don't have the moral authority to be questioning some of the stuff happening in the countries that they are happening, because ECOWAS formed to, you know, to foster, you know, democracy in all the countries that are members of the group. But when things happen, ECOWAS doesn't seem to have the teeth, the guts to deplore those undemocratic, you know, antics by some of our leaders. Look at somebody who, even the one from Ghana, who is part of the observer group.
Is that not a little bit unfair?
Okay, so the former president of Ghana, who is also part of the observer group, you know, look at his leadership. You know, it's because in Ghana, Nkrumah has been able to embolden our society to the extent that even though he's no more, he died years ago, that thing has been like planted in Ghanaians. So you cannot like subjugate and then dominate us in an undemocratic manner. It will be repelled. You understand? Because that is why otherwise, if not because of our nature, he would have done same. He would have done same. But because of our nature, we are as rebellious as whatever. So no leader can, you know, after you have successfully embraced democracy, for somebody to come and want to change it, it will be fought tooth and nail by Ghanaians. You understand? So somebody like that in the observer mission, observer group, it will be pretty difficult for that person to deplore it, to be deploring or deprecating the sort of things that have characterized the election. They will just give them a pass that you have the election has been generally peaceful. And you see, the election, on the day of election, that is not what is is an issue. The processes leading to the election. Because sometimes if election will be rigged, it is not on the day of election.
It's a process.
It's the process leading to the election. So if the process starts on that note, to seem that the people, the incumbent or the electoral management system, they want to manipulate the election in favor of somebody, it is the process. Just like in Ghana, you remember 2020, I think it was 2021 or 2022, when the Electoral Commission decided to do limited registration exercise. Correct, at the district level. And they restricted the registration to district offices. That clearly was a suppression of vote, because they wanted to do that thing to disenfranchise some group of people. Because, you know, a high turnout is always against incumbents.
Yeah.
You understand? So this, what is happening there, they have been able to stifle the democratic system there. So people are not interested. And they should remember that a coup reared its ugly head there. Because some of these things that, you know, bring or trigger some of those things. Because the people have no opportunity to truly reflect their will. So they also use the unconventional means to take you out of power. So that is it. Because I've not even monitored the process up to this stage. It was only last night when we sent me and said, see, I've immersed myself in other equally important stuff, so I've not really paid attention to them. But you know, it will be, I know members of Arise Ghana will be upset with us that 2 members of Arise Ghana are on the platform we have not said good morning to. So good morning to the gallant members of Arise Ghana, that patriotic civil society group. Good morning to all of you.
Prince.
I join in saying good morning to Arise Ghana and to all Ghanaians. Arise.
Still Ghana now.
Thank you very much. Now, there was some talk about some former president. I know President Kufuor is still in town. John Rawlings is gone. Which one is it?
The one who just exited. The one, His Excellency John Dramani.
The 80-something-year-old man.
The one, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
I think it's a good addition, considering his record in election rigging and all that. I think that it's a good addition. There'll be lessons he can teach them on what not to do and how to expect what is expected.
Oh, okay.
I mean, considering the analysis that have been done, it is very clear that we are facing now the old men. We've seen Paul Biya and Obiang, 93 and 83, right? Yeah. And so if we are now seeing younger people emerge, 49-year-old finance minister emerge, and I've already heard people draw parallels in Ghana. I think they are a bit far-fetched. I mean, that once finance ministers are being given a push, then maybe it's time to push the finance minister to also. I don't think that the NDC will do that. I think NDC will go definitely for a young person, but not necessarily a particular person. I mean, the systems would allow for the right persons to, you know, as well. So those debates should curtail. Now, having said that, I'm always for young people. I mean, I have a thing for seeing young people come up to the top. So, however, I think that the mode of getting young people to come to the top also is important. And in this particular instance, it looks like everybody else has been muscled out. In fact, there's no opposition candidate being put up. When I say opposition, the main opposition is not putting up a candidate because about 12 of its members had been, as it were, suspended for anti-party activities. And those anti-party activities are actually and clearly stated that they had been repeatedly been canvassing for the finance minister to become president from their other party. So it's like NPP members canvassing for Atoforsen to become president. Obviously, the NPP would suspend those members. So that's what has happened. And the party, that's the political party, had not been able to meet the requirements for, you know, participating in the election. So they are not participating. That leaves a free run for him. However, the only other person who has come up is somebody who has cut a deal with the system to be allowed to show up, you know. And of course, obviously, that tells you that we're having a sham of an election to start with. No matter what the turnout is, whether it is 1%, 2%, or whatever else, the gentleman Wadagni is going to become the president of Benin. So perhaps it's time for us to start looking at his credentials and his, you know, mettle, because we would have to be dealing with him going forward in ECOWAS and possibly at the AU when President Mahama assumes the chairmanship or the
Is that how you are saying it? Even when the processes have been flawed?
I am
you know,
saying
clear processes, you can see that it's been
I've
flawed.
outlined the flaws inherent. That for democracy to thrive, we want to see the multi-party thing happen. Unfortunately, some people have been bought, and they have been singing the praises of their opposition or their opponents, and their party has suspended them. The party itself has not been able to meet the requirements. If you don't meet the requirements, you cannot participate. And another person too has gone to cut a deal. The only person on the ballot has gone to cut a deal. Maybe just so he shows up on the ballot paper. And it is nice for them to have at least a sign of not having an endorsement of only one person. So I am saying that the lessons to be drawn in here is the lessons for which I think President Akufo-Addo, former President Akufo-Addo, is apt for being on that committee that is looking at all of this. Well, I want to see the report that will emerge and his input in that report, and then we'll talk. But the elections, of course, it's a foregone conclusion. We're going to have a president. Because when that one person votes or 1,000 people vote, they're just about 7.1 million, right? 7.9 million voters. And I don't think all of them are going to turn out. So if the results, I'm sure it shouldn't take more than 1 day to count the number of ballots that will be, put in there. And so, yes, Wadagne is going to become president-elect, and then will be sworn in, and will become a member, or he would be participating in the decision-making. That will affect all of us. So we must look at him as a person, his predisposition to leadership, and also governance in general. And because our lives as a sub-regional, entity of which Benin is a critical part, and it's our neighbor, in a sense, and also the continental thing. It's important to me. Beyond that, I think this election is not worthy of any further comment. 10 years in office for the outgoing president. That means five years. Yeah. Has also sparked another debate in Ghana whether we should extend our presidential term. They've even gone to 7 years. Now they've extended it. Yeah, but I'm saying that 7 years. But currently, the one that's exited did 2 5-year terms. Yeah, 2 5-year terms. So Wadagne will get a 14-year run. And that's why I'm saying that we need to look at him critically. We're going to stick with him for quite some time. And if he wins, considering the way he hasn't won and even he's been engineered into place, he will engineer himself into place a bit more. And he has age on his side. I mean, God does not care about young people dying. So young people can die, young people can, But bottom line is that we are stuck with Wadagne for some time. And Ghanaians must also draw lessons. If we are going to have a 2-year tenure thing with a longer period, whether that's 5 or 7 years, I'm sure the constitutional review process will kick in, and when we'll have the opportunity, we should take the right decision. And I've heard also some other discussions about the consecutive term thing. When I was listening to some radio stations, and already a lot of people are saying Mama should be allowed to do a second term. I'm saying, come on, hold on a minute. Is it the case that he hasn't done his second term? The man himself says he's done his second term. So why are we opening these debates? Of course, the man is doing very well. So yes, I can understand why people will be yearning for his system. But I think maybe it's about time that this thing is put to test, so that once and for all we can all be clear in our minds that the Supreme Court has ruled one way or the other. So we don't leave this thing too late, and then it comes to cause some, problems for us down the road. I'm assuming in another 1 year or 2, this thing is tested in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rules that indeed it's because it's not consecutive 2 terms that he's eligible for another one, and it wouldn't be counted as a third term. Then much as he's doing well with the big push which the MPP is trying to derail with the policies in health, one of which you have added today at 11 o'clock to be outlawed by the Minister of Health to plug the loopholes. Whilst I also admit that our health system is not perfect. I've been in a hospital situation for about a week, and I think the imperfection therein must be fixed, particularly the human resource, the nurses and the staff. The attitude to patients and patients' relatives is very, very deplorable. When people come out and ask for financial clearance to be put on the payroll, only to behave as though, their work is not important, it's not good. So there's a lot of work to be done. John Mahama, set up.
But David, before, actually you mentioned something earlier which I think is important for us to even start discussing. You know, you said earlier on that sometimes some governments engage in manipulations using the system. ECOWAS will keep quiet, and then eventually, when the whole thing boomerangs, then.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with the very charter that brings this sub-regional and regional bodies together, even including the global body. It is one, you see, the provisions demand respect for sovereignty. So the question now is, at what point would these regional bodies or even the global body, like the UN for example, intervene when you see internal manipulations? I think that is a challenge. We need to start having discussion on these matters so that when you see clear signals of authorities changing constitutions or making laws that seem to sideline some segments of the society in their favor, looking into the future in order that they can grab power, we need to start discussing how do we get in. Because like you said, we keep quiet, they do all these manipulations. Some, because of the provision of not interfering in internal affairs of sovereign countries, people are a bit reluctant. But we know that when they start the process, the ultimate aim is to strangle segments of the society and then cook everything in their favor. And I think that discussion, we must start it and say, oh, look, at what point, what are the signals that when we pick them, sub-regional bodies, global bodies should start speaking out. To what extent can we even empower civil society organizations to actually talk loudly on these matters so that we don't wait when the whole thing is cooked and then it just becomes a normal thing for somebody to take over?
I think that sometimes, in as much as there is that sovereignty, once you belong to a charter, there are certain laid down guidelines. Ours is the African peer review mechanism, where we are, we peer review ourselves, all the nations, on all forms of sectors, security, elections, democracy, and the rest. ECOWAS cannot say that they did not hear the cries and woes of the Beninois people when the processes started. Because we, even from the outside, we saw it. You could just see that these guys are trying to manipulate the system. But they will wait. On election day, as Dramani just said, right? It's not just about the election day. That they will go around and look at various... How many polling stations can they visit in Benin?
Oh, but it's a small country.
Yes, but how many? They can't go to all the electoral... You can't. You can't.
No, I disagree.
No, but you can't. Even no.
It depends on the deployment.
No, but you can't go to all the polling stations in Benin and give us a candid...
No, have you been to Benin?
I've passed through before.
You can actually walk through.
No, but Prince, but they will not visit all polling stations.
No, I'm not saying they will.
Exactly.
But you said they cannot.
So that will not... That can't inform whatever reports they give us, right? It is the processes that we can say, look, right now they'll wait. When the results are come out, then they'll come and tell us, oh, it was fairly free and fair.
No, hold on.
It's just like they're having a catalog that they're just feeling.
Ghana is not that huge, right? Togo is smaller. Benin is smaller. Okay, it is such that it is possible if they intend to do a good job. No, it is possible if they intend to do a good job. My issue is that the quality of persons that is sent is important.
It's not even that. It's not even that. We are basing on the quality of people they send.
No, the point I'm making.
And I know where you are driving towards.
And I'll go there. The processes you are talking about includes that which Salom outlined. Listen, did ECOWAS talk about the SAL thing? Did they ever?
No.
So what's your worry? SAL was a very serious, grave disenfranchisement leading to
so that's a discussion we have. And I think I accept with what Doug said, that we need to have all these peer review things that they be doing. Where does it end?
Peer review himself.
It doesn't end anyway.
It's part of a report.
In 2020, when he was superintendent affairs of this country, the election that gave him his second term was characterized by violence. Historically unprecedented since we started this Fourth Republic. This our democratic dispensation. It was under...
In fact, our last two elections have been characterized by violence.
Exactly.
Right? And those were Akufo-Addo elections.
Yes, under Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. This is why you have compelled me to mention the name. Under Nana Akufo-Addo. So that person is within or is a member of Observer Group, election Observer Group. What do you want those individuals to point out as the flaws of the election?
even if he stays awake.
Yes.
He's always
no, he's
more alert. He's not alert.
There's no sign of it.
let's move to our next issue. All right, okay. So we're going to see how the results will churn out. Results will start trickling in from tomorrow, and then we'll know how the whole process would, will turn out. But obviously, observers and watchers of elections on the continent suggest that it's not a contest, it's just a coronation affair. Oh, yeah. Looking at the processes, right? Looking at the processes that led to the election proper itself. Well, we will just wait and see how, Benin will handle itself going forward. Right, let's turn our attention, let's come home and look at issues, around corruption, okay? And our two issues, I'll try and see if we can merge the two together, but it's all got to do with prosecutions. Over the weekend, we heard reports that a U.S. court has given approval for the extradition of the former Maslock boss, SENA Tameklo, to be extradited back to Ghana. Right, there are a lot of concerns here, because if you look at the issues that are unfolding, our corruption fight is being fought on different levels, right? One is got to do with corruption-related cases that are leading to extraditions, right? Our own former finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, he himself is been fingered in one of those. Well, he is also he is out of ICE detention and is yet to appear before a U.S. court on the 27th of this month to face deportation charges, right? So there's a difference, I'm told. It's not the extradition charges, it's deportation, right? Charges. So a whole lot of issues here. Well, one down, one to go. And I want to start with you, Prince, on this one. You've been observing, and I know you've been listening to all the, all the commentaries over the weekend. We have two prominent personalities, right, who are expected to come back home to face corruption charges. One has been tried in absentia. She's been handed over a 10-year jail term. She absconded. People want us to believe that. And she's been found. She's expected to come back home. At the back of that, we are looking into the future and see if the former finance minister will also come back home. What are you getting from all this? Also at the back of the fact that the important personalities who are expected to lead these prosecutions are at each other's throat, fighting over who has the power to prosecute. The Attorney General is in court, right? In fact, he's joined a suit, right, as an interested party, trying to ward off the prosecutorial powers of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, who has given all indication. In fact, the last press conference he had, the suggestion was that people are trying to get him out of office. Where do you cite your imaginations and indications in the midst of all this?
Well, I think you left one person out, Ernest Dakwakori. That's the chef de maison of Finance Minister, right. Ken Ofori-Atta. He's also a wanted man, wanted for same extradition as Ken Ofori-Atta. And he's also run away. Let me start with SENA Tameklo, who I know very well. In fact, I worked with her. She was the CEO of the National Youth Authority when I was the Deputy CEO of the National Youth Authority. I know her.
Should we start investigating you?
Ha, 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 ha. Well, she left to Maslock, and then I left to the Youth Enterprise Support at the Office of the President. In fact, these are two agencies under the Office of the President or government machinery. I worked closely with her at the National Youth Authority, and for the first time, the National Youth Authority was put on the single spine under her watch. And I think she did quite a fine job. Unfortunately, when she went to Maslock, the National Youth Authority was very under-resourced, so we didn't have money to throw around and do all sorts of things. Maslock, however, is a state agency that gives out monies, loans to other persons, and she's accused of having misappropriated or embezzled some funds belonging to Maslock, for which trial she and the Director of Finance, I believe, or the Chief, whatever, were indicted, and tried. The trial started while she was present, unlike that of Ken Ofori-Atta, so there's a distinction. Now, in the course of the trial, that for health reasons, which were verified, and it's not a trumped up health, situation she had, where I'm not allowed to, as it were, disclose people's health on this. But if you wish for me to disclose, I'll disclose and give full disclosure of others too that you may be uncomfortable with. So be careful if you want me to.
Don't go there.
Well, but at least under the MPP, her health considerations were granted, and she left to get treatment in the U.S. She'd been undergoing treatment in the U.S., and the trial proceeded. Two people stood in surety. I recall the brother and then Mould. Alex Mould stood surety for her. She did not return, which is considered in legal terms as having jumped bail. And she had not returned. And so the state had a responsibility to track her. And due to the relationship that we have with the U.S., where she was, just like Ken, have her brought back. So the extradition request was put in, which extradition process has finally come full cycle. Indeed, she was apprehended the same day as Ken was in the U.S. And she was sent to a detention center, just like Ken was. She is due back. And so, by every logic, we expect that Ken Ofori-Atta will also join us shortly. And I'm sure Arise Ghana will be at the airport to welcome Madam SENA Tamaklo. And just the same way, Arise Ghana went to the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice to ask that Ken Ofori-Atta, once he returns, his rights as a citizen should not be abused, and that he is guaranteed fair trial, for which the Commissioner, Vital, confirmed same and gave Ghanaians his assurances. We expect that SENA will be given the same to serve, if for nothing, as a pointer to the U.S. and government, and also the legal system that is currently considering the deportation, extradition, or however else he's brought in. Even if he's put in a crate, we'll be happy to have him home, of Ken Ofori-Atta and his chef de maison. We want to see them. Everybody should come home to answer for their stewardship. In fact, when you enter public service or public office, the first consideration will be that you are ready to, as it were, give account of your stewardship. And so if Madam SENA Tamaklo is being brought back to give account of her stewardship, I think Ken Ofori-Atta and Ernest Akori must also be brought back to give account of their stewardship. I don't wish to believe for a minute that even though the evidence before us and that which we know of Ken Ofori-Atta and Akori and other companies and individuals that they helped to, as it were, quote unquote, loot from the state or plunder the public purse, and all those evidence that are available, would want to state that fair trial is a key, ingredient in our dispensation, and we should guard it jealously, and we would, from the Arise Ghana perspective, ensure that happens. So those who think that politicization of Ken's trial and so on should be a reason for him not to be brought back, I think that is totally wrong. It's out of the window. Whether we talk about it or we don't talk about it, he has to come back home. And I don't think the American government or the global, environment that we live in should entertain the thought of people having opportunity to serve and then they refuse to give account of their stewardship. The health considerations that led Ken to leave the country on the eve of the departure from office of his cousin Nana Akufo-Addo are no longer tenable. In fact, I wish very much to put on record that so far we have not heard Nana Akufo-Addo publicly speak to this issue and demand, like most Ghanaians are, for Ken to come back home. We've heard whispers that he's advised him to come back. We don't want to hear whispers. We want to see him do his fellow Ghanaians speech and say same. In fact, what's his name? The one who he used to mismanage the economy, the head of the economic management team at the time, who was claiming that Ken was taking his job from him and not allowing him to, as it were, manage the economy. Bawumia, he's now the leader of the NPP. He's the flag bearer of the NPP. He's also been silent about Ken Ofori-Atta and whether he should be brought back or whether Ken Ofori-Atta should be given an opportunity to give account of his stewardship. Bawumia, you can no longer keep quiet, okay? Bawumia, come out of the works and demand for Ken to come and demand for his extradition and lead the NPP to state clearly the position of the NPP on Ken's listen. To Ghanaians, it is the finances of this country that is being talked about. And, well, just free advice.
I've heard people suggest that the NPP is out of government. They have an individual, a former government official who is allegedly being involved in some corrupt-related issues. You are the government in power. Use your machinery to bring Ken home.
Okay.
Why should you involve the NPP?
No,
what do you want the NPP to say?
If your logic is right, then the NPP should shut up on every other issue that is going on. In fact, today I've seen the Otumfo, together with the Deputy Defense Minister, the Roads Minister, and the Mayor, the Regional Minister for Ashanti, getting the Ghana Armed Forces to start the expressway to Kumasi. The Ghana Armed Forces are going to construct that. Meanwhile, you have NPP elements, including an MP from Ashanti, that's the former Works and Housing or Roads Minister, the one who's also accused of a lot of corruption, Asasobachi. Opposed to that, the NPP is opposed to that, and they are opposed to the big push, which is going to allow for Ghana to have a great transformation. Otumfo is helping for that to happen, and these people are against. Now you ask yourself, what is this political party interested in? They just want to make sure that nothing happens in terms of progress for this country so that they can get power. Ghanaians are smarter than that. I am saying that if either they shut up on everything or they must speak to everything, particularly this one, because without the monies that have been stolen, the billions of dollars that has been stolen under the watch of Bawumia and Ken Ofori-Atta, it will be difficult to finish the big push in record time. How much have they stolen? You know how much they've stolen? You have any idea? Bawumia's brother alone, the contracts that he got, do you know how much it is? If you look at each of the ministries and the public accounts committee things that are coming up, these are real figures. We could finish this in the Kumasi Expressway in no time. You understand? And so also could we finish a lot of health sector things, education sector things. Everything requires money. In fact, we don't need the IMF if we are able to get oral to work. And so Ghanaians wanted oral. That's why the overwhelming number of people who went out to vote voted for the NDC and gave it the mandate. The micro minority must stop the distraction. These days, every day they want to claim some scandal, and they want to just obfuscate the atmosphere with a lot of, bad breath and fat. We will not have any more of it. Ghanaians are tired of this, but Ghanaians want to hear from Bawumia. In fact, today, I think Bawumia must speak to this issue. Otherwise, he doesn't even have an election to prosecute, because you sat at the place, you were put in charge of the economy. You mismanaged it. You mismanaged the CD. You let the CD be beaten very badly by the dollar. Today, within a short time, all of these things are happening and happening. Look, if you put, let's say, for example, Atufos, because we just discussed the Benin thing, finance minister against Bawumia, who's supposed to be an economic minister, Wizkid, who do you think Ghanaians want? If you put Haruna Iddrisu, you beat him. You put the chief of staff, you beat him. You put even the general secretary, now chairman, you beat him. The vice president. Everybody, even if you put, PDA. No, I don't want to use myself. Salom is younger. Salom will beat Bawumia any day. Ghanaians don't want Bawumia. So the last thing Bawumia wants to do is to keep quiet about Ken. You claim Ken didn't allow you to function, and that's how Ken lost the election. At least let us be, unless of course they did together. You understand? Because, you see, Ken was managing the personal finances of Akufo-Addo. That is what Akufo-Addo said when he was giving him his lesson of office. And so if Ken was managing Akufo-Addo's finances, and Ken does not come to testify, in another 1 year, we cannot prosecute Akufo-Addo. You know, for 3 years, if you don't prosecute a president...
What charges have you leveled against him that you want to prosecute?
Charlie, the daughters alone.
But nobody, there's no charges leveled against him.
Akufo-Addo personally, the things he has done.
But I'm saying there are no current charges against him.
But so if we are going to charge him, the star witness will be Ken Ofori-Atta. That's why he let him run away. Akufo-Addo allowed Ken to run away, and the OSP has been running the clock, and time is going. Right now, more than 1 year is gone. Another year, and we are almost done with the 3 years with window that you can prosecute Akufo-Addo. Look, Bawumia will be prosecuted. Akufo-Addo must be prosecuted. Look, anybody who has looted must be prosecuted, whether it's NDPC or I don't care. In fact, to add to that and not to conclude, I wish to congratulate the government for something that they promised, that they began doing, that they haven't done fully in the direction of oral. But at least I've seen, and I've gone to the website of the Lands Ministry, for example. They published the list of those who have looted or allegedly looted state lands and bungalows. They published the list. And they have cancelled a number of those in the thousands in Accra and Kumasi. I've seen Ashanti and Greater Accra, cancellations. We want the full details, because what they put there is not detailed enough. We want the details so we can actually see where the land is. So if your name is there and it's been cancelled, we want to see that your land is the one near Jack and Jill. So we go and verify that indeed, because a lot of buildings are still going up. If you go to the Salisbury area, as though there's not been a change in government, as though oral is not working, and it's really hurt some of us. We want to see that these things are put to a halt, because the Operation Cover All Loot is not about just rhetoric. We want to see action. Those who have stolen and the things are in their houses, under their beds or in their bank accounts, and are pumping it into building projects like there's no tomorrow. Those people must be pursued. The easiest way to find the cash that the people have stolen is to go there, like Sam Jonah said. Go out there. The buildings are springing up, the skyscrapers, the apartments, and so on. Let us go and see who are behind it. And in fact, when I look at the list, some names were repeating like 3-4 times. You ask yourself, how can one person be awarded so much? The person must be well connected, and some of them are fronting for people. So if the accusation is coming that NDC people are doing the same thing, and I hope by God that none of the NDC guys are doing that, they must be treated the same way.
Right. So,
thank you very much. I think my brother Prince, I don't know whether perhaps it escaped me. He never touched on the OSP and the OSP and the Attorney General's.
I didn't see a real problem there. You see, the Constitution gives only the Attorney General that responsibility. Parliament kind of tried to carve something out of that, and permission was given under a certain Attorney General Odami. Now a new Attorney General has come. He sees things a little differently. Even he was very instrumental in crafting the OSP bill. He understands clearly what is at stake. Now, a private person has gone to put up something. It wasn't the Attorney General. The Attorney General is in there. OSP wants to join the suit. OSP has been thrown out. I think that they should be given an opportunity to go and make their case. But bottom line is that I think the settlement of all of this is to separate the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. We don't need an OSP. We don't. The Attorney General's responsibility is clear, unambiguous. But the difficulty is that once the person is a minister,
you don't think that the AG has too much on his table?
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's the intention.
I'm saying that if you are the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, that's the first challenge. The first challenge is that you are sitting in cabinet with people. And the reason for carving out the OSP was to allow for some independent person, independent of the government circle, to prosecute people in government. Look, as we speak, is the current government prosecuting everybody who's out of government? It's not happening, and that's why people are angry. So it doesn't even answer the initial problem that the OSP was supposed to cure. If, assuming the Attorney General is supposed to prosecute those who are out of their government, but because they cannot prosecute those in their government, OSP has been, set up. The OSP's focus should be on those who are in government, isn't it? Yeah. And the Attorney General out of government. Is that what is happening? It's not happening. And that's why Ghanaians are saying that oral and etc. are not working. I say that we should decouple the Attorney General from the office of the Minister of Justice, okay? Or even the Minister of Justice position isn't really necessary. Let's just have an Attorney General that's independent. The constitutional review process has ended. The implementation phase is going to happen, and then we'll have a referendum. The new constitution that will be born out of that should not have these two together, and then would have solved it. But we need also to note that politicians across the board have been doing that scratch your back, I scratch your back thing, and that is what Ghanaians are up against. So if we are not careful, we can decouple and still have the same situation persistent, and that's why the constitution has given the greater power to the people of Ghana. The people of Ghana can rise up against anybody whether it's Attorney General or OSP or anybody. In fact, the people of Ghana can actually go and arrest people. You know that?
Yeah.
Citizen arrest. And I intend that very soon we will arrest some of the people who are building around Cantonment Laboni Airport. We will go. I will mount the bulldozer myself. I will mount it and we will demolish something.
Well,
You will be there to fight.
That would be against the law.
It's illegal. It's a constitutional listen.
Citizen arrest doesn't give you a right to go and demolish people's structure.
No, I didn't say go and
don't
demolish
get yourself in trouble.
No. I said we'll do it legally.
Right.
And you'll be there to cover.
All right.
So,
the extradition of Madam Sedinam Tabakulo to Ghana, that the American authority has, the court there has now ruled that she should be extradited to Ghana, back to Ghana. But it is not automatic that she is coming back to Ghana, because she has the right to appeal.
she's gone through, I think she's gone through that process.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, but
now the order has been given. She went before the courts. Now it's the courts that has decided that she has to be brought back.
Yes, but
so which means she's going
you
to
know the court doesn't have that sole responsibility. Even if the court decides that somebody should be extradited to the country making the request, there's an administrative stage, and that is firmly in the hands of, I think, the Secretary of State.
Yeah, final decisions.
You understand? The final decision rests with that person. So even if the court rules today that Mr. Kenofuriata should be extradited to Ghana, and if that political person says that no, he's not going, or he will not uphold the decision by the court, it means the person will not be brought back.
I find that a little bit strange.
Oh, that is it.
No, but that's what the
that is it. So that is how they treat the extradition. You understand? Correct. Now, the Attorney General and the OSP, there are two schools of thought in this matter, and you have touched on that a bit. That his plate is full, okay, which is even creating some disillusionment among Ghanaians that no, it's like the Attorney General is not working the way they expected him to work. He's not working. Now, a part of his authority or power, his prosecutorial power, part of this has been hived off to the OSP. But the Attorney General is mentioned. The Attorney General is mentioned in the Constitution of Ghana. Okay, and his duty and mandate clearly spelled out in the Constitution, and that is entrenched. Okay, and that is Article 88, Clause 3, which gives the prosecutorial powers to the Attorney General. No other person shares that with the Attorney General. Okay, so the OSP, we need to know why that office was even set up in the first place. It was set up just because we have been whining and grumbling that the Attorney General should not be a politically appointed person. So Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, during his campaign in 2016, put it before the good people of this country that given the mandate, he would create the office of special prosecutor, and people were excited because that is what we have long wished for, that the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, that two positions should be decoupled for us to have an independent Attorney General who will be responsible for prosecuting criminal cases for and on behalf of the state of the state Ghana. Okay. Now, the only thing I find a bit troubling, troubling, is that Operation Retrieve All Loot. It seems the Attorney General is underestimating what that very campaign message is. I can see that he's grossly underestimating it. Most Ghanaians voted for the NDC because of Aura. Because right before us that time was a kleptocratic regime. People who were plundering our resources because they wanted to be rich beyond the dreams of avarice. We witnessed it. So when the NDC, judging the mood and sentiment on the ground, formulated that policy of oral, we bought into it and campaigned for them vigorously. So if Attorney General comes and is, managing this thing as though it's just one of those campaign promises, I want to use this opportunity to tell him that it is a very serious promise. It is a solemn promise that they must kept. If they fail to implement oral to the satisfaction of Ghanaians, it will cause them and may even jeopardize the democratic stability. People looted this country. They plundered our resources. And you come to do camaraderie, scratch my back, I scratch your back. Because people are even saying it. That the interest of Attorney General to even be join this thing smacks of that thing. So he will have the opportunity to be doing this, scratch my back, I scratch your back. Indeed, the Constitution of Ghana is explicit and ambiguously clear that the prosecutorial powers rest with him. But that shall not be his business now. The business he has now is to fully implement oral. We mean it. This government may just be like
the prosecution of oral cases. It is intertwined. You find some of the docket, I'm told, with the AG. Some are with the OSP. Right? So if you have two officers who are in conflict,
they are not in conflict.
They are in conflict.
No, they are not in conflict.
I am not saying that. Okay. I'm saying that once the AG is in court and is not happy with some of the prosecutorial powers of the OSP, then it becomes problematic. So now, who gets to prosecute what? Under which authority? As you rightly said, we all acknowledge the Constitution gives the AG that, that mandate.
Yeah, that is his mandate, clearly spelled out.
It was as a result of a difficulty. That's why the Office of the Special Prosecutor was created.
Correct.
Right? Because sometimes of the conflict of interest,
exactly.
Will the AG be able to prosecute his own?
Yeah, the OSP, at a point in time of his investigation into some of these corruption and corruption-related cases, happened to arrest somebody who sponsored the Attorney General's campaign. You don't immediately recall. Somebody who funded the Attorney General's campaign was arrested by the OSP. Okay, because the OSP was doing an investigation that led to the arrest of that gentleman. There, people started reading meanings into the thing, and then when the gentleman was released, some Ghanaians even said that they suspected that the AG must have played must have pulled some strings for the gentleman to be released. Now AG is now fighting tooth and nail to get his constitutional mandate untouched. He doesn't want any rival. We are saying to him that he should focus on oral. If an office like the OSP is prosecuting a case, say corruption and corruption-related cases, and the AG also finds interest in that, shouldn't they be engaging in synergy instead of rivalry?
But if you are not getting that from...
You are not getting it from where?
How do you move on?
No, they are not getting it from where?
In this instance, we heard Ken Ofrate's case that the AG had come out and says, look, let me have the docket. And you heard that banter right, between the OSP and the AG, where the AG was requesting for the docket. Up to now, for me, I can't tell whether that docket was released to the AG or not. So it becomes a problem. It's been released, but after it delayed.
Good.
Right? And that even delayed the process.
Good. You see, when this thing started, when this this court thing started, one thing that popped up on my mind immediately was, or is it the case that the Attorney General having some suspicion of the OSP not truly investigating some cases that he claims is investigating, which therefore is compelling the Attorney General now to now claim that no, you are even doing something. Your office is even
the powers is derived from the powers of the office.
It is unconstitutional in the sense that the Constitution of Ghana, Article 1 Clause 2, specifically says that this Constitution shall be the supreme law of Ghana. And any other law found to be inconsistent with any provision of this Constitution shall, to the extent of that inconsistency, be void. Article 1 Clause 2. That's what the Constitution says. So it means that the creation of the OSP is void.
And in fact, the AG's argument
without prejudice to the case that is before the
Parliament
court now.
Even aired
correct
in creation of the OSP. That's the argument.
So Parliament actually, without prejudice to the case that is before the judges, because it's sub judice. So I should be careful how I go about it. But the Constitution is clear that any other law found to be inconsistent with any provision of this Constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. But the Constitution again says that if you are a Ghanaian and you find that a law has been passed that is not consistent with any provision of this Constitution, you proceed to court. And that is what that person has done by proceeding to the court. So it means Parliament, like you rightly said, Parliament actually erred in creating the office of special prosecutor.
Now, there's a small caveat though.
What's that?
If only the special prosecutor will seek permission from the Attorney General in taking up the prosecutorial functions that has been quote unquote donated to it, then there's no problem.
But in this instance,
no, but
the assumption is that the OSP is not doing so.
You see, in the same constitution, I've got I think 83 or so, the Attorney General is supposed to be able to give prosecutorial functions to other persons. You understand? And in this particular instance, the police have been doing it, etc., etc., and the OSP can. So if the OSP has been a legally created body to do what it is supposed to be doing, then it must be taken, in order for it to be constitutional, it must derive express, and the word is express permission from the Attorney General at all times in order for it to be consistent with the Constitution. But now, because the OSP sees itself as independent, the OSP is working with its own timetable.
Is it that it sees itself as independent, or that is what the legislation that sets it up is?
Exactly. So it's an independent institution.
Yes, because the legislation that sets him up as independent. Okay, so he also has the power to prosecute. So it's not like he is acting on his impulse.
Subject to that should be the legal framework. And subject to.
Good, and I think that is even the gravamen of what is before the court.
Right.
Well, that is what is before the court.
Right.
So that's why I in my prefatory comment statement I said that two schools of thought. People, especially the oralists, those who the proponent of oral, believe that or have this thing that Attorney General, your plate is full. Focus on oral. Oral is where the thing is. We want that done. Don't be sidetracked. Focus on your oral. Okay, that's one school of thought. Without paying obeisance to Article 88 Clause 3 and Article 1 Clause 2. You understand? As for them, they are not interested in that. But the people who also believe in the rule of law and the literalist interpretation of the Constitution says that the Attorney General is right by joining this case because his prosecutorial power has been is not being rivaled by another state institution. So he is fighting to have that total control of his prosecutorial powers. So that's why I said two schools of thought. But for me, what I think is that as somebody who also do my things within the ambit of the Constitution, the Attorney General, to that extent, he is right. But we don't want him to be sidetracked. We want him to focus on what they promised us, which is the oral. For us in Arise Ghana, as for us, that is the thing. So we have become like advocates. Staunch advocates of oral, and imbued with the spirit of martyr and the sharp intellect of advocates. That's how we approach that. Right. That's how we approach this Aura thing. So Attorney General should focus on Aura. The NDC government, the Mahama government should focus on Aura, because now some people say Aura is comatose. It is moribund. Aura has been killed because of camaraderie. Thank you.
No, Aura will not die.
I think for the first case of SENA, I believe that one is a straightforward case. We don't need to the extent that a district court in Nevada has certified that she should be extradited. So be it. Yeah. Once the procedures have been followed, rules have been respected, not to waste. But ultimately, we know it has to take a political decision here. You know, a minister of the equivalent of the Minister of Foreign Affairs will have to take the final decision as to whether she should be brought back or not. We can only hope that she should be brought back to face justice. Now the second issue, the issue of AG and the suit in court as to whether his prosecutorial powers has been, you know, given out entirely to, or partially rather, to OSP, or is that whatever OSP has to do must come with his permission. I think that we should leave the legal angle for the courts to decide. But to the ordinary Ghanaian, if sovereignty relies, our sovereignty lies with us, the ordinary people, what are the thought processes of the ordinary Ghanaian as far as fighting graft is concerned? That should be the focus. I want to first start by cautioning or pleading with the Attorney General. He should weigh his position when the law was being passed. That's Act 759. We know records in Parliament suggest that his position was at variance with those who wanted to create the office of the Special Prosecutor. So he should try to make that distinction between what his position was and his current position as an Attorney General and what his position should be. Else, it shouldn't be that the position he held before is what is still being carried now as far as this suit is concerned. Yes, a private individual has gone to the Supreme Court to seek interpretation. So let's leave the legal interpretation to, okay? But what are Ghanaians looking for? As far as the establishment of the office of the OSP is concerned, I think it has to do with the question of fighting corruption, fighting graft. That's the bottom line. As to how it is going to be done, that is what Ghanaians are looking for. As for the legal language, all the gymnastics, the fine English, look, Ghanaians are not looking for that. Like has been said by my two elder brothers, it is clear and it remains a fact that, look, until now, we know how this nation was looted. For example, we are in this country when about 7 or 9 banks, 9 indigenous banks were closed. Right? We were told there was a liability of about 9 billion. However, 25 billion plus has been expended to resolve a 9 billion problem. Ghanaians want to know what happened. As to those languages, as to whoever has prosecutor powers, whether it's been given partially, it's been given fully, or we don't want to, we are not interested in that. If there was a 9 billion liability or a 9 billion problem, how come the 25 billion, we are still counting that, some have been saying it has even crossed 28 billion, has been expended, and yet the problem had not been fully resolved? Because if you listen to commentaries even till date, there are people who are still claiming that their lifetime investments have been destroyed and have not been compensated. And this should be the areas of interest for state actors, whether it is OSP, whether it is Attorney General, and so on and so forth. We know Motor Angels, Tama Motorway, $3 million gone, no work done. We know between they said this Tamale Road to Savrugu to Wale or so, some Indian company took away how much? Some $29 million, no work done. And many of same, Palugu, etc. These are the things that Ghanaians are looking for. Well, it's refreshing to hear from PDA this morning that some lands that were looted have been reversed. We need to know the details.
No reverse.
Or is it council? Okay. It should take him back to the state. So these should be areas that we want state actors to be telling Ghanaians that state property that has been misapplied, that has been looted, and so on and so forth. Efforts are being made to get them back to the rightful owners who are Ghanaians, but not to be grappling over who has full prosecutorial powers, who hasn't got, who has got. Those ones, I don't think Ghanaians are interested. Yes, to the extent that they are important constitutional matters, I think that the AG has more to do. And like my brother here said, look, if oral does not succeed, and this will pay dearly for it. There is no doubt about that. And this will pay dearly if oral does not succeed. Because the last election results is not only NDC members who voted the NDC into power. They were ordinary Ghanaians who saw the loots, who saw what was going on. Just go back to Public Accounts Committee. What are some of the things we're hearing?
Yeah.
And speak to some of the officers, even in Auditor General's report. I'm telling you, the report we have on table has been watered down. When you speak to some of the field officers who did work investigating some of this that are being reported at Public Accounts Committee, they will tell the version that has officially come out has even been watered down. That is more scandalous than what we're seeing. So these are the things that we should be talking about.
These are huge sums.
Yeah, huge sums of money. And yet we sit down here, we are going to IMF, we are going to World Bank for crumb. You know, why can't we work out modalities, policies, frameworks that will help us retrieve what we have lost?
If officials at the district assembly
the basket
are chopping close to 1.5 million Ghana cedis,
the basket is still leaking. We are not mending the holes, and yet we keep rather fighting and haggling over immaterial things that will not save the public purse. Probably we have reached a stage that should we start talking about how to harmonize all these investigative bodies so that we have one body but different units, so that at the end of the day, whether it is OSP, Yoko, whatever it is, can we find all of them under one body, so that yes, it is that body that will assign what should go to Yoko, what should go to OSP, and so on and so forth, what to go to the police CID, and so on and so forth, so that at the end of the day we can hold that institutions responsible. But when we say like, okay, Yoko seems to have some leverage to do certain things, OSP has his own independence, Attorney General, and it's like the whole thing is mixed up. Can we start talking of looking at a unified body that will be delegated fully to handle all this matter? Then within that unit, departments are assigned specific rules to carry out. So at the end of the day, we just hold that unit responsible.
I think in addition to this also, perhaps now that the legal education bill has been passed and soon becomes law, we'll have a lot more lawyers, and hopefully the Office of the Attorney General, once decoupled, would have the full complement of lawyers to, as Doc has indicated, assist in not just a prosecutorial.
Are we saying we don't have enough? We don't have enough lawyers to prosecute.
No, in fact, they're understaffed. They are heavily understaffed, and especially prosecutors. They are very. Listen, I'll defer the rest of the time.
Thank you. You know, in my submission earlier, I said that there is this perception out there that Aura is comatose, that Aura is moribund, because of camaraderie. The Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, who is an appointee of the President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, Mr. Mustafa Bande, just yesterday, is quoted to have said that the only mistake this NDC government has made is allowing those who caused harm to the country to walk freely.
Where from that quote?
That is Star FM. He said this thing on Star FM, and it's being circulated. Yes, this is somebody.
The president says that we should be patient. Let's allow due process to go on, right? Yeah. The only way we can have things done our way It's to topple the constitution.
No.
That's what the president said. That's
yeah,
what he said.
yeah,
I'm not saying it.
That's
what he said.
I was actually,
right?
I was actually
that if you want it quick, if you want it the way Ghanaians want to have it, the only way is to comatose the 1992 constitution, which we don't want to. So let's allow the system to go.
That is not that is not like to say that we should topple the constitution. That will not be the antidote.
But you want
at the time we're
so allow the laws to work.
At the time we're campaigning passionately for oral, it was not lost on us that oral will be implemented within within constitutional frame. Okay, within a constitutional framework of this country.
The wheel of justice grinds slowly.
I am saying to you that you see, it is not only the competence to drive this. It is not only the competence to prosecute the matter. The drive. When the drive isn't there, the case will drag. What is stopping government now to ask the courts to start running shifts?
24-hour.
Yes.
Public tribunals.
Correct, because they promised us public tribunals. Come next year, there will be a lot of elections. That's my fear. And people will not be paying attention to some of these things.
The internal party
the internal party elections. Parliamentary primaries, presidential primaries, branch. I think we'll be doing the branch this year, and then the constituency ones. So a lot of elections coming up, and then people will be shouting. Those times, if that time you will not be there because you will be immersed in some of the party stuff. So you will not be around to be giving us the support to be shouting.
Once I'm alive, I'll be there.
Thank you. To be talking about the aura and how aura must not fail. Look, if the one who is within the government architecture is telling us that because he said that the harm that has been caused, those who have caused harm to this country have been left to go freely. Because he has a ringside view of what is happening there. And he's telling us this. Who am I to dispute it? And when I'm even having the vibe that indeed is like aura is comatose. That is why we want to always be on standby to be propping up aura.
Right.
We want to see the Attorney General displaying the zeal of the zeal that can be akin to a religious fanatic. We want to see that because he's a consummate lawyer. That we can't take it away from him. But sometimes, too much knowledge of something can make you even drag. Too much of knowledge of something can make you, because always you want to do, to the extent that you may even be engaging in petty organ, nitpicking, those things that are not even relevant because you are so pedantic in your way of doing stuff. We want to see him. He should display admirable sense of enthusiasm in implementing aura. We want to see that. He's too for those of us who are proponents of aura. We are not seeing the drive in him. We want to see the drive in him. You know, when they mention those monies, those huge sums of money, eye-watering sums of money at the Public Account Committee. Just yesterday, I was in a vehicle coming to Accra last night. So a conversation we struck up a conversation in there about the slow pace of construction in the country, the expansion of Tamamoto Way. And I said that this time around, 21st century, countries are doing this 24 hours, 24/7. They are on site working. And then somebody said, oh, Charlie, but we don't have the money. That's why when they do it to some stage, they leave it, come back next time. And I said, but have you been listening to the Public Account Committee? Have you been watching them? If they are not careful, one day somebody will go there, somebody may just penetrate that, get into that thing and do something untoward. No, you know why? The reason when they mention those monies, as monies being looted or wasted by state institutions, get some of us angry.
Yeah.
That money could have done something, so the opportunity cost. That money could have provided the poor young peoples of Mafi Adakpo who are lying prostrate on their bellies, writing in classrooms. That money could have done something.
And these are serious infractions.
Good,
right? People forging people's signature.
And it's become a ritual. It's become a ritual. Have we ever heard that Public Account Committee has successfully pursued these people who have done these infractions,
right,
and pursued them, gave them to the Attorney General for successful prosecution.
They are asked to pay and then they are asked to work.
Yes!
You pay and then you...
You know Lin Kuan Yew, who lifted the Singaporean from the doldrums of poverty into prosperity, said something, and let me just use that thing to wrap up. He said, democracy does not necessarily lead to development. Yeah. It is discipline. So if you are practicing democracy, and you think that by merely practicing democracy you are going to develop, forget it. Discipline is a critical component of democracy.
Right.
That probity and accountability. You know, yesterday somebody just mentioned to me that where in Ghana's law are state officials expected to account to the people of Ghana. So ridiculous. I was in stitches when I heard the thing.
Okay, right.
Yes, the person asked that question. You know, so clearly that person demonstrated inexcusable ignorance of the constitution of Ghana, because the constitution of Ghana, the preamble, accountability is mentioned there. Accountability is mentioned.
All right.
So
okay,
oral must work.
You know, already some lawyers are trying to punch holes into how Ken can escape justice, and it's for me very sad. A lot of those lawyers who appear on those weekend programs, especially Newsfile, were given and using this OSP Attorney General thing as a basis for even truncating the extradition thing. Look, sometimes you ask yourself, are some of these people patriots? I remember Kofi Benson, for example, said he would not advise Ken to come home because of his past relationship with him and all that. If he was, come on, are we serious? I've heard Bobby Benson and others. Look, Charlie, Ghanaians must be very angry, whether it's with the NDC, with the MPP, or lawyers who are trying to allow people to run away with the loot. We must come out, and I think in the coming days, Arise Ghana will rise again.
Right.
And with that, Ghanaians.
Right. Okay, I think we need to wind down here. Let me just do a couple of messages and then we'll be done for our session this morning. This one is from Kwablavi of Pokwasi, Benghazi. It says, President John Mahama has been able to cut off tax on importation of fuel, and that has halted the increase of lorry fare. Ghanaians shouldn't panic that there is going to be increased price of fuel and lorry fare. Okay. Yes, so that this week, the next pricing window is on the 16th of, I think, this week, right? So we've been told that government would take off or suspend some of the margins and the levies on fuel. So obviously, in this window, it won't go up. We expect it to be stable, or to even come down, right?
Ideally, what you're saying is correct, but Trump is also now threatening to block.
Yes, now trying the block. Yes, it's going to. It's a very fluid, right? So we wait to see. The government has given us the assurance that they were going to suspend.
The dynamics change every now and then.
Yeah, but promise is a promise. So we'll hold government accountable.
The government will fulfill its own.
Yes.
But Trump is not.
No, but it's subject for review. He himself mentioned that the government, that the pricing will be subject to review weekly.
The government of Ghana you can rely on.
Yes.
But the external factors like Trump, he sends his vice president, and then the course of the negotiations, the guys almost reach an agreement. Then U-turn.
So fuel stability is now inching on constant review. Also the issues in the Middle East. Well, let's see how 16th will go, right? The next window. Okay, Abbas. That's from Abbas Amogobo Offenso. NDC is #1 in fighting corruption, in trying all possible ways to bring Madam Sedinam Tamaklo to serve her jail term. The NPP is a nation wrecker. They should just help government to bring Ken Oforiatta back home for accountability. Period. Thank you so much, Abbas, for that message. This one is from Sami Boachi Asaman Kesi. The current administration led by Mahama seems to operate with blatant hypocrisy and double standards, doesn't it? It is intriguing that issues concerning the LGBT plus community, we've not discussed that, my brother. Okay, this one says, good morning, I am Eben from Kwabenya. If it's easier to extradite your own member, Sedinam Tamaklo, to Ghana, then I think it will be less easier to bring down Ken Oforiatta, who has caused more harm to the country, to answer questions. No more long talk. with press conferences, period. Okay, greetings to Julius Debra, you says. Thank you so much for the message there. This one is from Bisiu, Spintex, Accra. It says, last week was a week of government working so hard to avoid increases in some sectors of the economy relatively to fuel because of the Middle East crisis. Transport with the arrival of 100 buses to cushion commuters during rush hours, and finally the trade minister's intervention in reversing the price of sachet water, and we need to applaud the government. Papa Bisiu Spentex sent that in. Okay, so let me do Facebook. All right, Seidu Isaka, I acknowledge you. You are watching us from Tokyo. All right, it says, good morning, Pan-African Television. You are watching us from Tokyo. Thank you so much. Masaud Kumasi Bantama says, the lies and propaganda of the NDC in their quest for power is making the majority of Ghanaians lose confidence in politicians. Let's have the trust and confidence in the NPP led by Bawumia to restore hope for the future generations. And he continues, Bawumia Twasu. Bosheba Amisti, he says, Guaso Zungu, President Mahama, right, should fulfill his cocoa promise because the farmers are crying. The cocoa is the root of this country, so you should concentrate on it. My brother, let's face reality. Right? Yeah, this and sometimes when I hear people talk about this cocoa thing, it still amazes me because I think we should move on as a country, right? We are just facing reality. Times have changed. The international pricing has all changed. Right, so let's be realistic sometime. Anyway, thank you so much for your messages. I shouldn't even be commenting on them, but thank you so much for doing the watching. PDA, thank you. Salom, thank you. Dog, thank you so much. And yeah, you are speaking all the languages. Yes. Thank you so much for doing it. God willing, we'll be here same time tomorrow to have a very productive discussion. My name is David Otukunato. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Bye.